Welcome back to our continuing study of CSS. Today we're going to discuss CSS Combinators. So our reference, as always, the MDN. So search for Combinators, MDN, and you'll find the page that it was based on, or you could follow the URL that's given there. And first example of not a combinator. So this is not a combinator, although it looks like one, because combinators involve putting selectors, combinations of the selectors as part of the CSS rule, the selector of the CSS rule. So this is a group of CSS selectors, but it's a list of CSS selectors, so they're not combined together. It merely means that this rule applies to all the 6 header tags and the table header tag as well. So selectors, not a combinator. A combinator combines CSS selectors in a rule set, so you're going to see one selector on the left-hand side and another selector on the right-hand side, and there's different types of selectors, and we'll see them next. So this is the most summary of combinators that I could possibly come up with, and I came up with it for my own study because the more I can condense the information, the better I can study it, study sheet. So CSS combinators, 2 categories. So let's go over the categories first, and then the types, the 4 types are underneath it. So categories, sibling and descendant. And in order to understand this terminology in the terms of HTML, think back in your mind how HTML is laid out. You have the HTML tag. Then you have the head tag and the body tag. So you have in terms of descendants, you already have a descendant there. The head and the body tag are direct descendants of the HTML tag. They're underneath it. They're nested within it. So nested elements, and remember HTML is this nested element that eventually is essentially this upside down tree that has 2 major branches, the head and the body, and then branches underneath that. So that's where the sibling and descendant terminology comes from. So body and body and head are the descendants of HTML, but they're siblings of each other. So body and head are siblings of each other because they're at the same level of nestedness away from the HTML root. Okay, so that's a super summary. And on the left-hand side of a plus sign, for example, and then on the right-hand side of a plus sign, you'll see the selectors. And that's a sibling selector in terms of its category. So again, those are direct, those are essentially brother and sister, right? Ancestors of the same parent tag. So the direct sibling is the sibling that is right next to you, right? The sibling that follows next to you in terms of the HTML layout. 2 paragraphs in a row. Any sibling is, say, if it was on between 2 paragraphs, would be with the tilde. That means it doesn't have to be the sibling that directly follows, but could be sibling anywhere on the page. The descendant. That means a child of it. And again, there's a direct, that is, if the parent is on the parent element is on the left and the child element is on the right of the greater than sign, then that's a direct child. That is the first element that's nested within another element, the direct child. Now, if you just put a space there between the 2 selectors, then that means any descendant, and probably the most common way to do this, any descendant of the containing class will be selected by that CSS. So next we'll see examples.